Open quotes, to the choirmaster, with stringed instruments, according to the Sheminith. A Psalm of David. O Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing, heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. My soul also is greatly troubled. But you, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, deliver my life, save me for the sake of your steadfast love. For in death there is no remembrance of you, in Sheol who will give you praise? I am weary with my moaning, every night I flood my bed with tears, I drench my couch with my weeping. My eye wastes away because of grief, it grows weak because of all my foes. Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea, the Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled, they shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. Close quotes. Introduction. Psalm 6 stands as a poignant expression of deep anguish and heartfelt desperation. Penned by David, this psalm captures the raw emotions of a soul in turmoil, reflecting the human experience of suffering and the longing for divine mercy. In a world filled with trials, pain, and uncertainty, this psalm resonates with many who find themselves in moments of despair, seeking solace and healing from God. David's cries reveal the profound connection between the spiritual and emotional realms. His heartfelt lamentation serves not only as a plea for relief from physical suffering but also as a deep yearning for spiritual restoration. Through this reflection, we will explore the themes of anguish, divine discipline, the hope for healing, and the ultimate assurance of God's love and acceptance. The weight of anguish, verses 1-3, David begins with an earnest plea, O Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. This opening verse reveals the weight of David's anguish and his awareness of God's holiness. He understands the necessity of divine discipline but pleads for mercy in the face of his suffering. David's request indicates a deep awareness of his sinfulness and the consequences that arise from it. In verse 2, he continues, Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing, heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. Here, David is not merely seeking physical healing, he is expressing a profound emotional and spiritual turmoil. The term languishing suggests a state of weariness and despair, a feeling of being overwhelmed by life's burdens. It is essential to acknowledge that anguish can manifest in various forms, emotional, physical, and spiritual. David's use of the phrase, heal me, O Lord, signifies his understanding that true healing comes from God alone. In our lives, we often seek healing through various means, whether through relationships, material possessions, or achievements. However, true restoration can only be found in a genuine encounter with God. David's plea emphasizes the need for divine intervention in our moments of weakness. In verse 3, he exclaims, My soul also is greatly troubled. But you, O Lord, how long? This question reflects the depth of his distress and longing for relief. The how long echoes throughout the Psalms, resonating with many who find themselves in prolonged seasons of suffering. It captures the essence of human impatience and the desire for immediate relief from pain. The cry for deliverance, verses 4-5, David continues his heartfelt lamentation in verses 4 and 5, crying out, Turn, O Lord, deliver my life, save me for the sake of your steadfast love. In this moment, David appeals to God's unwavering love as the basis for his request for salvation. He understands that it is not by his own merit that he can expect help, but rather through God's faithful character. The term steadfast love is a recurring theme in the Psalms, representing God's covenantal faithfulness and unchanging nature. David's reliance on God's love reveals a profound understanding of the divine nature, one that is compassionate, merciful, and eager to forgive. In times of despair, we, too, can anchor our hopes in the steadfast love of God, knowing that His character remains constant even when our circumstances change. In verse 5, David continues, For in death there is no remembrance of you, in Sheol who will give you praise. Here, David is expressing the urgency of his situation. He is acutely aware that life on earth provides an opportunity to worship and glorify God. In Sheol, the realm of the dead, he believes that praise ceases. This sentiment speaks to the inherent desire for significance and purpose in our lives, a yearning to leave a legacy of faithfulness. David's reflection on the fleeting nature of life invites us to consider how we live each day. Are we fully utilizing the time we have to honor God and share His love with others? This awareness can inspire us to live intentionally, fostering a deeper relationship with God while encouraging those around us. The depth of grief, verses 6 to 7, in the next verses, David paints a vivid picture of his anguish. I am weary with my moaning, every night I flood my bed with tears, I drench my couch with my weeping. These expressions of grief highlight the profound emotional pain David is experiencing. His weariness speaks to the toll that sorrow takes on the soul. Mourning is not merely a momentary feeling, it can become an all-consuming experience, affecting our thoughts, actions, and interactions with others. The imagery of flooding his bed with tears emphasizes the depth of his sorrow. David is not hiding his pain, he is openly expressing it to God. This raw honesty in prayer serves as a powerful reminder that God desires our authenticity. When we bring our struggles before Him, we open the door to healing and restoration. In verse 7, he states, My eye wastes away because of grief, it grows weak because of all my foes. The enemies David refers to can be understood both literally and metaphorically. In a physical sense, he may have been facing adversaries seeking to harm him. Metaphorically, these foes can represent the inner turmoil and struggles we face in life: doubt, fear, guilt, and shame. This acknowledgement of grief is crucial in our spiritual journeys. We often live in a culture that encourages us to suppress our emotions, portraying vulnerability as weakness. However, true strength lies in acknowledging our pain and seeking God's healing touch. The journey toward healing begins with honesty, recognizing our wounds and bringing them to the one who can restore our souls. The call to repentance, verse 8, David's plea becomes more resolute in verse 8, Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. This declaration marks a pivotal moment in the psalm. David draws a clear line between himself and those who engage in wickedness. His call to depart reflects a desire to separate himself from influences that can lead him astray. Recognizing the presence of evil is essential for spiritual vigilance. Just as David sought to distance himself from those who worked iniquity, we, too, must be mindful of the influences in our lives. Negative influences can distract us from our relationship with God, leading us away from the path of righteousness. David's assurance that the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping signifies a profound truth: God is attentive to our cries. When we feel overwhelmed and burdened, we can take comfort in knowing that our prayers do not go unheard. The God who created the universe is also the God who intimately cares for each of us. In moments of despair, we can find solace in the understanding that God is with us, ready to listen, comfort, and heal. His willingness to hear our cries invites us to pour out our hearts before Him, fostering a deeper relationship based on trust and reliance. Assurance of God's response, verses 9 to 10, as the psalm progresses, David affirms, The Lord has heard my plea, the Lord accepts my prayer. This declaration speaks to the transformative power of prayer. David moves from a place of anguish to one of assurance, recognizing that God is not only listening but also responding to his cries. The transition from despair to hope underscores the importance of faith in the midst of trials. In verse 10, David concludes with a powerful affirmation: All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled, they shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. This statement embodies David's confidence in God's justice. While he faces opposition and hardship, he remains steadfast in the belief that God will vindicate him. The assurance of God's intervention serves as a reminder that we are not alone in our struggles. David's proclamation of the shame that will befall his enemies highlights the reality of divine justice. In times of injustice or persecution, we can take comfort in knowing that God sees all and will ultimately bring about righteousness. Our faith assures us that we are not fighting our battles alone, God stands as our defender. This reflection invites us to consider the nature of our struggles. Are we facing challenges that feel overwhelming? Can we trust in God's goodness and faithfulness to deliver us from our circumstances? By placing our confidence in God's character, we can navigate our trials with hope and courage. Conclusion: Psalm 6 is a powerful testament to the anguish of the human soul and the unwavering love of God. David's heartfelt lamentation reveals the depths of despair, the yearning for divine mercy, and the assurance of God's response. Through this psalm, we are reminded that it is okay to express our emotions, seek healing, and rely on God's steadfast love. In our own lives, we may encounter moments of profound grief, uncertainty, or spiritual warfare. Just as David cried out to God, we too can bring our burdens before Him. Our cries do not fall on deaf ears, they reach the heart of a compassionate Father who longs to comfort and heal us. Ultimately, Psalm 6 invites us to embrace the journey of faith, one that acknowledges our pain while anchoring our hope in God's promises. As we navigate the complexities of life, let us remember that even in our darkest moments, God is present, listening, and ready to bring about healing and restoration. May we echo David's prayer in our lives, seeking divine mercy, recognizing the power of prayer, and placing our trust in the unfailing love of our Creator. In doing so, we can experience the transformation that comes from bringing our anguished souls before the throne of grace.